I'd like to welcome you again to today's Culturati Live, Busting Silos with AI Teaming, Rethinking Coordination and Culture in the Age of Intelligent Collaboration. I'm Misty Wild, COO of Culturati, an organization that convenes leaders to share playbooks and workshop today's challenges around corporate culture and leadership. Joining me today are Douglas Ferguson, CEO and founder of Voltage Control, and Erik Skogsberg, Vice President of Learning at Voltage Control. Voltage Control is a facilitation academy and consultancy that I can personally vouch for, having gone through their certification program with Erik a year or two ago
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
A little bit more on these fantastic guys. Douglas is an entrepreneur, educator, and human-centered technologist. He has helped transform leaders, innovators, and creatives from Nike, Google, the Air Force, Gap, Tesla, Apple, Adobe, Dropbox, Fidelity, and the list goes on. Douglas is a thought leader and author of 4 books: Magical Meetings, Beyond the Prototype, How to Remix Anything, and Start Within. Erik believes that a deep empathy and caring rooted in human-centered design, systems thinking, and futures thinking best supports partners in finding their solutions. Erik is passionate about supporting clients imagining innovative approaches to complex organizational challenges. Trained as an educator, designer, researcher, and change agent, he brings significant teaching, design, mentoring, and research experiences from across secondary, higher education, nonprofit, and industry contexts. Whether working with individuals like myself, teams, or organizations, he helps people design lasting growth and innovation. Prior to working with Voltage Control, he co-founded Michigan State University's Hub for Innovation in Learning and Technology, an internal design consultancy focused on learning experience design, innovation, and organizational transformation. He earned his BA in English Literature from Western Washington University, MAT in Secondary English Education from Brown University, and a PhD from Michigan State University's in going too fast here, instruction and teacher education. We are honored to have them back with us today. And with that, I'll let you guys take it away.
Misty, so great to be here. Thank you for the warm welcome. And Erik, as always, it's great to be in conversation with you today about a topic
Absolutely.
we're excited about.
Absolutely. Looking forward to diving in here, a topic that is certainly on many folks' minds here, and we're hoping to build and nuance that a little bit. So AI is certainly everywhere, but most of it right now lives outside collaboration, not inside of it. And that's something that we're going to explore with you all today.
And the real question isn't what AI can do for us, but how we can work together with AI.
Yeah, so in our work at Voltage Control, we call this AI teaming. So ultimately bringing AI into the circle to help teams sense better, align better, and ultimately act faster and with more purpose.
So here today at Culturati Live, we're going to be exploring not just smarter work, but more connected work. And
So go ahead, Douglas.
yeah, just wanted to invite you all to take a curious lens to what we're setting up here and start off with a quick poll in Zoom. When you think of AI at work, what comes to mind first? So Erik, I'm curious to see what we'll hear from folks. So we don't know a lot about the folks that are showing up today and their experience with AI so far, but I'd be curious to see if it echoes what we've been hearing from clients and other folks in the industry.
Yeah, and a whole spectrum here. You'll see, folks thinking personal productivity, team collaboration, decision support, coordination and alignment, bunch of different ways that it does and could show up. But where are folks coming in today? Is what we were guessing at earlier, that coordination's not necessarily living inside the work with AI yet. Is that on other folks' minds too?
Hmm.
It'd be cool to see what emerges here.
Give it a little bit longer here to see. Oh, there we
No?
go. Get some results up here. All right. Wow, only 7% in the coordination and alignment.
Yeah,
Fascinating.
a lot of personal productivity, which
Mhm.
we're certainly seeing, right? It's helped us do our work individually faster, right? Tasks get quicker. Pretty cool to be able to prompt AI and see it come immediately back with things. So certainly see a lot of that in our work. But as this is reflecting here, a lot less around the collaboration coordination. So even decision support is still very much a single player thing at a lot of points. So it looks like this will be be a rich conversation for us to dig into here with folks because familiarity with the singular, but not necessarily the coordination. So. So, want to tee up the coordination problem here because again, things are set up in a way that ultimately um, make can make the work of AI harder or worse when it's not a collaborator here, and so we really want to tee up what the coordination problem is as it exists in organizations, how AI may actually be making it a little worse, and what can be done about these pieces where coordination fails.
It's so critical, and AI actually unlocks coordination in places where it was very difficult before. And this is something that you see across a lot of technological innovations where coordination in pockets where it was impossible now becomes possible. And that's probably one of the most transformative aspects of AI. And once you acknowledge that, it really unlocks a lot of possibility. But in most organizations, coordination is uneven, accidental, and dependent on often heroic individuals. And AI could change that.
Yeah, I mean, it brings up how important it is to ultimately design in our work for coordination, especially when it's not natural across functions, time zones, or even incentive structures, right? This image here pops up oftentimes what we see in larger organizations where there are so many coordinating and collaborating points that aren't necessarily talking to each other or in silos in ways that ultimately don't mean the best work.
Mm. Yeah, and I think that again brings the opportunity for facilitation and AI to come together.
Yeah, and that's ultimately where, AI can become a collaborator
Mm.
because it can help us visualize dependencies and surface tensions and align around shared artifacts in ways that we haven't been able to do before. And at the speed that it allows, that it gets all of that out in front of us in some powerful ways.
That's right. And it's something we were experimenting with at South by Southwest
Mhm.
with our AI teammates and building opportunities for folks to shift their philosophy a bit around how AI shows up in this more multiplayer and collaborative way.
Absolutely. Yeah, just imagining, all right, you've got this solo productivity that you're doing. What might it look like for that to be a part of the team's capacity and to have that AI as a teammate in your work? Um, we recently worked with Autodesk at a chief of staff summit, helped to facilitate that. I've worked with them for a number of years, and brought together chiefs of staff. As a role there, they're key leaders at essential coordinating points across the organization. They are ultimately at the boundary of silos and use facilitation at that point as a powerful lens to both identify and start mapping bottlenecks in the org to begin unblocking them, because a lot of times that's something that lives in one chief of staff's head. They may coordinate with another chief of staff. How do we make that better? And it was a real awesome opportunity to use facilitation to map those coordinating points and start to think about ways to make those pieces smoother and make those bottlenecks, get rid of those as we were moving forward. Now imagine that same visibility, but instantly mapped by AI on a shared canvas and right in front of the team. All of a sudden, we're able to then see that together.
Yeah, and when AI becomes a collaborator, it can help us visualize dependencies. We can surface tensions, align around shared artifacts when it's multiplayer. So moving from the single player mode into this multiplayer mode where we can interact together, we can notice and move things forward in a collaborative fashion.
So, with that shift or teeing up that shift, we're curious to hear from you all. We're again, and we're going to put a poll up about coordination and breakdowns in your org. So, curious to know where coordination breaks down most in your work. Is it between departments, between strategy and execution? Maybe leadership levels, geographies. Maybe there's something else altogether, but just curious to see where you are in your coordination and potential breakdowns.
Yeah, if you have other thoughts, feel free to elaborate in the chats. And if you have questions or remarks along the way, please do drop them in. We'll be watching as we go. And
Absolutely.
there will be time for Q&A at the end, but happy to entertain things and even build upon it as we go rather than waiting to the end.
Yeah. To get those thoughts in there. Again, where are things breaking down most for you when it comes to coordination? And there we go. So it looks like some large majority between departments. We've got strategy and execution, geographies and leadership levels a little bit lower down there. So
Yeah, so
similar to, yeah, what we've seen and even we're seeing in the Autodesk conversation.
yeah, and that departmental handoff is so crucial. Projects can go sideways so often, and also misunderstandings, or you know, it's like I don't know how many times I've heard one group being disgruntled at another group because they don't like the brief format or how they have to hand off
Hmm.
stuff.
Hmm.
And these new multiplayer AI capabilities really unlock a lot of that, right? We can get more aligned. We can visualize those needs. We can also help get those formats dialed in ways that become a little less hefty of a lift.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's take a moment to review what we've covered here so far in this first section. And the idea here is coordination is invisible work, but it enables collaboration. So, how are we looking at the underpinnings for better collaboration through attention to coordination? Also, in most organizations, the coordination is uneven and heroic, even at times. And how might we use AI to pivot that to allow coordination to be more fluid and happen in ways that are unachievable before? And we're going to make sure we want to design for coordination across functions, time zones. We heard the departments is number one. That's not surprising. And so our departments might have different incentives, different motivations. And so how do we get insights into that were maybe not as obvious before, or even translate live in the moment? And then of course, if we take these facilitation mindsets and approaches and tools, combine them with AI in a multiplayer fashion, we can visualize dependencies and surface these tensions, as I mentioned, in real time.
So we're gonna turn now to what it can look like for AI teaming in action, what it actually looks like on the ground, and introduce in a tool as a Miro partner what a great tool out there can do to show you how this works. And we're going to model a couple of features in that tool to show you how we use, in this case, Miro to make coordination visible and more actionable.
Yeah, and we're really proud to be certified Miro solutions partners, especially because of the new groundbreaking work they've done to make AI multiplayer. And it really aligns nicely with the philosophies we've been thinking and preaching about for a good 2 years now. And
Mhm.
when we did the workshop at South by Southwest, we were really struggling to find the perfect app to demonstrate some of these ideas. We had about 100 folks in the room there at South by, and they were really taking to these concepts, but we had them copying and pasting between GPT and Claude and Miro and all these tools. And so it's exciting to have the stuff working how we imagined it could. And so I want to walk through some of these things to give you some context here.
Yeah, so really cool. I mean, in this short period of time to see how much has advanced, because as Douglas had pointed out, we were imagining this more integrated experience and kind of doing the best we could to create some workarounds and separate tools, and now it's all in one place. So we've been experimenting with Miro's newest AI tools here to bring collaboration to life. And again, it's really important to think of AI not as a replacement for a teammate, but as a teammate with a role to play. So you'll see we've got in a moment here we'll talk about sidekicks and different ways that you can have AI show up as an optimist, as a challenger, as a synthesizer, maybe bringing in some important history or institutional knowledge to the conversation that isn't there. Each role ultimately adds a different lens that helps teams break through bias, maybe uncover new insights, and ultimately when we co-facilitate with AI, we're not delegating decisions. We're augmenting the reflections and the perspective that can be in the room.
So I just want to give you a quick context on how Miro has taken this to market and develop features around this. It's an underpinning. We'll do a quick demo, and then we'll close out with some thoughts on how systems thinking will elevate this and really take it to a point of integration org wide. And so it really is about AI first innovation and applying that to our typical models for getting work done inside of our organizations. And so here we see a standard discover, define, deliver type of loop, and bringing all the participants together in those moments, and even allowing roles to step into or individuals to step into roles that they maybe are a little bit more distant from. And it moves this siloed individual AI usage into more of a multiplayer team kind of function. And so the first thing they delivered was this concept of canvas as the prompt. And so as we're doing messy work as a team, we can grab all that messy work, highlight all of it, and then prompt the AI with that context. So rather than having to describe that Misty has labeled a item or an element of our project as deprioritized, it's going to visually notice that. We don't have to point those things out. We don't have to rewrite them. We just highlight the section of the board that's relevant and then start having dialogue with the AI. So the canvas as the prompt was the first key kind of innovation that started to unlock a lot of this teaming work, because as we're already teaming on the canvas using various features and functions, now the AI has that visual understanding around the three-dimensional or the two-dimensional context. So the placement of a check mark, for instance, or an X, or even a scribble that says deprioritize this. Now, on top of the AI as a canvas, they've introduced two features, AI flows and AI sidekicks. And Erik mentioned sidekicks before. Imagine it's a custom GPT that is having visibility into the canvas that you're doing the work on. And so not only does it have a system prompt that you can develop and you can tune for a certain personality or for a certain need, it also has all that contextual knowledge of your company and the work at hand. And so let's talk a little bit about flows. Flows, which we'll see in a moment, are streamlined processes for creating almost a domino effect of artifact generation. And as we know, using ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini, if we tell the AI to do too much at once, it often gives us poor results. And so staging out the request is a really powerful technique. And some folks will create automation engines through Zapier or N8N, etc. What Miro has created is the ability to, without having a lot of automation knowledge, to quickly create a series of assets that build upon each other, like dominoes. One gets created, that kicks off the generation of the next one. And so if we think about the pipeline of how we might create a blog post, for example, we create a concept, we create an outline, we might create a first draft, we might then generate some images based on that. All that entire pipeline can easily be created in a flow and run together as a team so you can react to it very quickly. And as I mentioned, sidekicks are these chat-based AI agents that allow us to collaborate together on the canvas. And so here's an example of one of our sidekicks, which we're going to demo here in a moment. It's called the Optimist. And the Optimist is designed to bring in a little bit of optimistic thinking into our workshop. And so, or any meeting we might be having. And we have built a bunch of sidekicks, 6 in all, for these kind of persona. We call them the AI teammate personas. And the Optimist is one of those. We also have the Challenger, the Historian, the Co-Facilitator, the Sketcher, and the Synthesizer. And the idea here is that when we're teaming with the AI, we can reach for someone who's not in the room and bring that perspective in momentarily and just challenge our thinking a little bit and allow us to open up and reframe. We also have a bunch of sidekicks we've created for specific workshop utilities. So these are things like the idea remixer, the retro runner, the idea generator. These are really helpful tools when we need a very specific task completed on our behalf. And we've also created a flow template in Miro for helping you get to instant prototyping. And this is a series of artifacts that get generated based on some user research into a product you might be building or a project you might be working on. And it takes it all the way through to these kind of final artifacts. And the beauty is that the team can start to react to what they don't like, what they like, what they're noticing that they might have given in the early prompts that have steered the AI in the wrong way, which can provide a lot of alignment for the team as they try to rework these things and get to a solid end goal. So just wanted to share a few things that we've created with it. And now we're going to jump into a quick demo. Erik, you want to set that up for us?
Absolutely. So Douglas is going to move now to another place on the board here in a moment, which you can see another cool part of what's being embedded into the board is that our whole deck was actually is even on the board there as we're doing other activities here and allowing us to have everything in the canvas. So we've got a session queued up here. Imagine you're having a conversation with your team about what AI adoption might mean for them. So there's a whole group of stickies here on the board that could have been generated based on that conversation, and you can see here a lot of the stickies that are up there look pretty pessimistic when it comes to our view of AI. What does AI adoption mean for us? Humans losing jobs, tools not talking to each other, lack of coordination, a lot of pretty pessimistic things that are being set up here in the conversation, which also echo what we're hearing sometimes from teams. So this is a great place where a sidekick could bring in a helpful additional lens and create some new ideas in response to what may already be coming up in the team. So in a moment here, Douglas is going to kick off a flow that will run in 3 steps from left to right. So
Before we
first,
get there, let's
yeah.
take a look at the Optimist. So you may
Yeah.
have noticed I selected these 14 stickies here and kicked off a prompt to our Optimist. And Erik, you want to point out what's happening here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what's happening after Douglas kicked off that initial prompt with the Optimist is The optimists looked at those initial stickies that were generated, those more pessimistic ones, and generated some more optimistic responses or alternatives there for the group to consider. So Douglas has the opportunity or option there to either reject those ideas or add them to the board. So you see he added them to the board there, and a whole bunch of different new, more optimistic ideas are coming into that team's conversation. So, and even categorized here automatically on the board for them. So we've got both now the more pessimistic ideas, the more optimistic ideas, and now that we're going to do something with what emerged there. So this is a good example of how a flow can work. Again, a series of chained prompts and outputs together. So in a moment, Douglas is going to kick off a flow that will run in 3 steps from left to right. So you can see ultimately up at the top of the screen there, the flow has started. We got the progress bar. First, the first step in the flow will generate a synthesis doc that ultimately gives the team a high level brief of the multiple perspectives that are coming up in the conversation, comparing the more maybe pessimistic views, the more optimistic views, and giving a high level perspective as to what that looks like. The second step in the flow will ultimately highlight potential tensions and contradictions between those couple of different perspectives. And then finally, in that third step, the flow will start to identify some next steps and priorities for the team. A really important place where teams should be closing out conversations and thinking about what are we going to do next based on what emerged in the conversation we had. So we're going to check back in here on the first doc that was generated, again, that summary of perspectives, and you can see that the flows already generated here a list of both critical concerns. We've got some workforce impact, implementation challenges, quality and risk factors, and also, again, we've got both the pessimism and optimism here, some strategic opportunities. So bullet pointed out there, new value creation, human AI partnership, organizational transformation, a great place where then the team can zoom out and say, which direction might we want to go? What is this looking like? Now, if we pop over to that second step in the flow, it's going to pop open some tensions and contradictions in the overall strategy as we're both weighing the pros and cons and the pessimism and optimism that then the team can together talk about and even react to. And you'll see on here, these are actually live docs. So if Douglas clicked on the text in there, the team could edit, could copy and paste, could swap things out. And again, they're doing that together versus having one individual or a couple of individuals go off and do their solo work and then bring it to the team. The team's doing it all together. And you can see Douglas is pulling in some reactions to things that might want to move forward with on that doc. Again, a great rallying point for the team itself to work together in the canvas. Right next door, the flow also kicked off a table of next steps. What should be done out of this conversation here? And you can see different priority areas are suggested. We've got actions, priority levels that then the team can react to, can move around, can edit, but it puts front and center this important next step out of a team conversation to identify next steps, directions that we're going to go, and makes that much easier as it's already been created for the team to do, react to, talk about. So as you see that pop out and that as a possible feature opportunity. I'll just let that settle a little bit as that may get some wheels turning for you in your work if all of a sudden that's possible. And we've got a new poll that we're going to be popping up here in a moment to
Yeah,
get you
curious.
reflecting.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. And really curious to hear uh, which of the AI teammates would your team benefit the most from?
Yeah, so we channeled the optimist there, bringing that into the team. We've also got the challenger, exposing some risks, maybe the other side to a conversation. The synthesizer connects up the dots, and then the historian brings some important context, maybe institutional knowledge or background that the team may not be aware of. So what would your team benefit from most?
Super curious. That's really, it was
Yeah.
really fun at South by because we were handing out little postcards with they're like giant tarot cards with cool graphics on them, and so it was really fun after everyone got seated because I could look at the stack of leftover cards to see what was the most
Yeah.
popular.
Yeah.
No need for historian. That's fascinating.
Huh. Okay. Maybe that's regularly represented in some way there in the teams, at least that are here in this webinar. So Challenger, all right, always good to have that voice exposing risks, the other side to the conversation.
You know what this is telling me? We have a lot of historian optimist in the room
Yeah,
who.
that's right. That's right. As long
Super,
as they're
super.
there in the team, in the room, in the conversation.
That's right. Yeah. All right.
If anything, it creates some really important awareness for what roles are represented, what functions are represented, and how important it is to have that balance there in the room as we go. So. So just to recap, after the demo and what we highlighted for y'all, key points to return to. So again, Miro AI and what we presented is a multiplayer experience and really enables some important shared thinking on the canvas. And it's important, as we approach AI in these ways, that you're treating AI as a teammate, and the sidekick roles and features make that possible, bringing in the voice of the optimist, the challenger, the synthesizer, the historian, the sketcher, and the co-facilitator. All of a sudden, those can now be brought into the team at a moment's notice if that perspective isn't there. And then we also demoed for you the flows, the workflows here in Miro to show a series of chained actions and features of AI that really make easier the process of bringing ideas together and interacting, also helping the team see things they may not have seen before, and even identifying things like important next steps and prioritizing things on a table or a Kanban board. All of a sudden, that can be brought in very quickly with AI in the canvas.
Let's shift our gears a bit here now to think about what this means for the organization. This is a philosophy we've had for a while that's now enabled by Miro, so we don't have to simulate it so much by brute force. We've been working as a team in some of these ways and longing for these tools. So we were super elated when we got early access back in August to start building and playing with these tools. But it's insufficient to just create the tools and know they exist. We have to take an approach and a lens from a leadership and a cultural standpoint to ensure that we're adopting the tools in a way that can enable these multiplayer use cases. And in order to do that, we have to take a systems thinking approach. And so when we take these philosophies, when we look at what AI is possible in a multiplayer setting and apply a systems thinking view, we can really unlock transformational value across the organization. And so, this important point to start on is that every AI experiment touches more than just workflow. We talked a bit about workflows with the flows, but it really enables, especially when we think about the coordination problem we introduced, it's an opportunity to shift power, trust, and meaning. And if we treat AI as transformational, like software rollout or a digital transformation, we'll just miss the cultural transformation piece that it deeply requires.
And this is where systems perspectives and systems thinking is so important. You know, not a new set of lenses. Systems leadership, system change, systems thinking has been in the organizational space for a number of years. But at this point, it's even more essential to bring systems thinking in because it helps us see those invisible threads where incentives and tools and habits reinforce each other.
Yeah, and, there's a lot of theory in systems thinking and the various tools and whatnot. And I think that therein lies the power of facilitation and why we're such proponents of it as a modern leadership skill, because facilitation is how we put systems thinking into practice. And facilitation is the key for intervening into systems with questions and visuals and participation from everyone.
Yeah, and this is a really cool place where AI can help us ultimately map and model these systems faster. But even there, still the humans make the meaning of what they see.
And again, it's a nice opportunity just to anchor on the fact that what we're talking about is teaming, not tooling. And this is a big problem with how a lot of these AI transformations or even AI adoption at a more granular level with the team is unfolding. It's a lot of an analysis of tools, it's a lot of equipping individuals. And if we think about that messy chart that we showed you with the coordination problem, imagine now that we're giving everyone rocket fuel at the individual level, and that's going into that coordination soup and chaos. We're only making the problem worse because everybody gets more efficient, but the whole system becomes bogged down. And so we really need to think about designing systems and organizations and teams and departments so that we are focused on teaming and not tooling. Tooling can enable better tooling. Sorry, better tooling can enable better teaming, but only if they've been taking this coordination problem and better collaboration, multiplayer AI into consideration.
Yeah, and it gives us a real powerful in taking that approach difference between what has been and what could be. You know, even still in conversations, we're seeing this before picture, and what we're really pointing to is something that truly leverages AI at the team level and can really supercharge what organizations can do. So instead of a team focusing just on tool adoption here, what might it look like if teams could build learning loops and focus on that? Or instead of just an efficiency upgrade mindset, how about a shift to AI ultimately participating in reflection and on the team together? Instead of siloed outputs, what might it look like to move to shared artifacts that ultimately align action? And ultimately, when it comes down to it, the difference here is treating AI as a dynamic participant in reflection and on the team, not just an efficiency upgrade for the company.
Yeah, and let's review a bit here what we've seen and the systems principles that we've covered. AI should exist in collaboration, not outside of it. Coordination is a new leadership muscle. So how are we thinking about distilling the coordination problem and really thinking about what new forms of coordination we thought were impossible are now unlocked with AI? Systems thinking is also essential for transformation, especially in a cultural context, because we're not just looking at it as a project with a start and end and deliverable dates and technology constraints and dependencies. We're really thinking about some more subtle dynamics that are at play. We're also going to look into breaking silos with shared artifacts that we generate through AI teaming and collaborative work. And then finally, culture is the operating system of AI success.
So as we're moving closer to our close here and some final reflections and polls, wanted to hit home that this is ultimately about also rethinking what transformation should look like or how we should approach it, and ultimately this is about seeing transformation, in this case with AI and at this moment, as a continuous practice and not just a one-time project. So if we take that approach, then AI transformation is not just about deploying models. It's ultimately about how we redesign the conversations that we're having.
Yep. And a lot of times those conversations get really big, really fast. And so, really encourage folks to start small, co-facilitate with AI and retros, brainstorming, synthesis to build some muscle and some familiarity with these tools, while also having broader strategic conversations about how we'll set the conditions for those the behaviors to flourish.
Yeah, again, let AI help make things visible that haven't been before, and then you can use facilitation and the human and reflective parts of your work and team to make sense of what's ultimately emerging.
Absolutely. And I'd like to remind people that transformation only happens when curiosity, reflection, and coordination compound over time.
So we have another prompt here and reflection for you to respond to in this time in the chat. So we're curious to know as you're thinking about digesting pieces of what we teed up for you. What's one recurring meeting where AI could act as a teammate for you and not just a tool? What might that look like? Why don't you drop that in the chat here again? What's something you're regularly doing where AI could help as this teammate?
Comment about posturing here. And and you know, there's a lot of organizations where the tooling is restricted or not not enabled. That certainly creates some challenges for folks to lean in these ways. I also have seen a lot of organizations where that intent has backfired terribly, and it's not you know, you might hear me say that and think I'm going to make the argument, well, they're not innovating as fast as they could. But actually, what's happening is that because folks are limited and they have access to all the tools, they use them anyway. They just go on a personal device and use the tools because they need the efficiency. And so if we
Mhm.
that's going to compound this individual efficiency trap even further, because not only are they using it in silos and in a not in an uncoordinated and in a way that lacks collaboration, but they're also having to jump through hurdles because you know they're bypassing you know security guardrails, etc.
Yeah, seeing a few more pop up here. AI helping to bring clarity to context, right? When a lot of, especially when a lot of things are on the board there, and those contextual or systemic pieces are at play, AI can quickly help us pop out and notice some things. I'm seeing some ideas around monthly stakeholder business reviews. Great to synthesize the dependencies and impacts. I think that's a fantastic idea there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep them coming as you're reflecting here. Again, those recurring meetings, those things that are routine, are a great place to focus in trying some things out and prototyping some new ways.
Absolutely. Well, let's maybe move to closing, and so we have a little bit of time for questions in case folks have other things on their mind. I see some other things popping in. We can come back to them after we kind of hit our closing slides here. Um,
Yeah, so ultimately, again, returning to the coordination piece, Douglas.
yeah, well, I think the big message is we believe that coordination is culture in motion. And if the more we can, the better we can coordinate, the more that our culture can flourish and become fountainous.
Yeah, and ultimately here again, and we modeled some of the pieces. AI helps us see systems and patterns faster, but then ultimately facilitation helps us steer them together.
Yeah, I like that point. And we often talk about the future of work is not human or AI. It's the combination of both. And when people gather together and unlock the value um, and are moved by it as a group, we often say that no one is as smart as everyone. And when the group is challenged by a different idea that is not surfaced on their team, great way to bring in diversity that's lacking. Also, I've seen that when the AI provides the wrong answer, it can really galvanize a team together because they have a common enemy. That thing is wrong. Well, what is not wrong? What is right? We can get more clarity on that when we do this work together.
Yeah, and again, I challenge you to invite AI into your collaboration, not as a replacement, but as a reflection partner, as an additional teammate that can unlock some really important things.
We have one more poll here to wrap up our polling today. And this poll is, what is your next experiment with AI and collaboration? Hopefully, we've inspired you to try some things out. And so if you were to run an experiment, to try something around these concepts we've been sharing, what might it be? And we've offered 4 options or categories here.
Yeah, some great potential ideas here if you're wondering about what to do next.
I'm always curious what people will commit to, Eric.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a good window into to what folks are taking away, what next steps they might want to take here.
All right.
Oh, love
Co-facilitate
this.
with AI and Miro. I love it.
Yeah. There we go, jumping right in. It's fantastic.
Also, possibly my favorites, and I'm glad to see it's at least in second place, is facilitating a reflection on AI's role in your team. And I think that's a conversation not enough people are having. And so if we inspired that conversation to happen with 3 folks, then I'm thrilled by that outcome.
Absolutely. It helps. I mean, that's a systems conversation right there. It gets people right into that space. And hopefully then invites further experiments.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Well, Eric, you want to close us out here with a few insights?
Yeah, so just returning to some key points as we're rounding the corner here and then getting into questions. Again, hitting home this idea that coordination is ultimately culture and motion. So if you're wanting to shift culture in the directions you're hoping, especially at this moment of disruption and important conversations around AI and the meaning of work, coordination is really the key part of that culture shift. AI again helps us see systems faster, and then facilitation helps us steer them together. Futures of work is not human or AI. It's ultimately human plus AI plus facilitation and deliberately bringing that into place. And then finally, we invite you to invite AI into your collaboration, not as a replacement, but ultimately as a powerful reflection partner.
Incredible. And so as we go into final Q&A here, we've got a QR code that you can scan. We could also drop this into the chats, I guess, the URL. But we do have a waiting list for these flows and sidekicks we've created. Miro's in the process of banning their library that they call the Miroverse for templates for the instant prototyping flow that we created, as well as the sidekicks. And even though those features have been released and they're in beta, we're still working with them to get those loaded in and available. But you can join early and we'll let you know, send you direct links and get you all set up with the stuff. I did see a question, Eric, in the chats around wanting to see us create a flow from scratch, which would be really easy to do. So that might be a first question to dive into. What do you think?
Sure, yeah, go right ahead.
And Mystic,
Pop
thank
that
you for
up.
getting that URL in the chat. To appreciate the support there. Um, so one thing is I'll just kind of peel back the covers a bit here on what we have going on. So if you notice here, if I click on this document, you'll notice this little diamond. We fondly call them the diamond ears because there's a diamond on the left and a diamond on the right. The diamond on the left is your input. The diamond on your right is your output. And so let me create a fresh document so that you can quickly see and accuse. So I will have to be looking off of camera to do this work. So apologies for no eye contact. But so if I have a brand new doc here, I can click the diamond ear, and it pops up all the formats that I have available inside of Miro, and I can from that document create any of these formats. So images, slides, like a slide deck presentation, a document, a table, a diagram, a prototype. And you can also create an AI instruction block. So say that you want to have the outputs of some work that's already happening feed into a refinement of an instruction block that might then pass on down chain to other things. Now, so if I did say create a table, I could then from that table create a diagram, and then from that diagram I could create a prototype. And the other thing that's quite interesting is, in addition to these various components that can be uh, outputs, we also have some additional things that can go in as inputs. And most of these are identical, except you'll see the addition of timeline and frame. So timelines can't be created by AI, but can be consumed by AI. The same as a frame. And frames are really nice. It's one of my favorite tricks. And in fact, I used it up here. So if you notice when I hover, when I'm dragging this over, you'll see this little shadow line here that's popping up as I move this in. It's because I've got a frame underneath my template here that when I drag stuff in, it's joining that frame, and that little line is telling me that's happening. And the importance of that is that that document is being fed by this frame. So everything in that frame is going to be context for that document that gets created. And so, so that's a nice way of building things out and having it be ready to go. Once the team has added stuff in, you can go and hit the run button, and it's going to take everything that you've dropped into that frame into account as its context. I guess a couple other things to note for each of these documents and formats, you would type in a prompt to explain what you want how you want it created. And in the case of the table, it's a little bit more limited, but in the case of a document, let's see, I need to make that into a flow. In the case of a document, you have a few extra controls. You can pick the model that you want to use for the generation. You can also select your company knowledge. So if your company uses Glean or Amazon Q or any other form of AI company knowledge, and you've got that set up and configured, that can be extra context too, which is really phenomenal. So say that you're ideating a project together with product and marketing, but you don't want to go too far out of context from our corporate OKRs or our corporate mandate, it'll help keep you in line because you can include that knowledge. You can also toggle whether or not it's going to be searching the web. And those are pretty much the basics as far as getting going and get planning out. The big thing is thinking about what are the constituent parts and initial steps to building out your end vision of what you want to create, and then allowing those things to get generated so the team can quickly react to all those steps along the way and get kind of instant alignment with each other.
Yeah, pretty cool to see that live in action, all the different possibilities. So the wheels are turning for folks there.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. I saw a few folks were interested in seeing that, so happy to show how under the hood a bit.
So it looks like a question here from Misty. You've encouraged all of us to treat AI as a reflection partner. In your experience, what's the clearest signal that a team is genuinely ready for that kind of collaboration? It's a good question there.
Eric, the thing that struck me on that is we always build on top of where folks are at, and we're looking at existing rituals. We're also looking at existing friction points. And
Mm-hmm.
so if there's something that can be done that is an incremental advancement on something they're already doing, that's going to solve one of those friction points, often coordination between departments or handoffs. That can be a great way to build momentum and excitement around this stuff because they can see instant wins, and there's an instant kind of case study or pocket story that can start to circulate around to celebrate the wins. Also, it also boils down to what folks are allowed to have access to. And
Mm-hmm.
so we typically like to start there versus it becoming an IT conversation about opening access to new tools and capabilities. How can we start to simulate some of this stuff with what we have access to today? And then get some of those proof points to then build a case for the more fit for purpose tools.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's a really important point to make that we don't need to focus or wait until everything's perfectly aligned to jump in, especially at that high level. You can start with a team, you can start with a ritual that's ripe for some redesign or re-envisioning and jump in from there and even jump into that conversation about how we might collectively better use AI together at any point, right? And that opens up these possibilities.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in and all the great questions. Thank you, Eric, for being here with me. Thank you, Misty,
Yep.
Eugene, for having us. It was a blast. Hopefully, this started a conversation.
Yeah. Looking forward to seeing what continues to emerge.